are you? All right, cool.
Yeah, well, we got some interesting stuff to talk about that is so pertinent to the show. And by the way, welcome to Over 50 Starting Over, everyone. I'm Barry Edwards.
And I'm Merle Garrison.
Yeah, you are. Happy
Yes, I
Friday.
am. All day.
It's a
Happy Friday
beautiful,
to you. Yeah.
it's a beautiful Friday. We just, of course, got back from our walk. Charlie and I across the street at the lake with all the really nice people and the beautiful dogs. And I had a great conversation with my new friend as of a few weeks ago, Jeff. Jeff is, I'd say, in his early 60s. He is a pulmonary pediatrician, and he's one of as he tells me, like three of these highly specialized specialists in the country.
Mhm.
So there's a high demand for him. He at his current or former place of work, he had a big falling out with his boss, and that's just something I'll leave right there. But in the meantime, he's like, "Oh my God!" He goes, "You do branding and online marketing." He's like, "I am in the market. I want to be independent, and because I can work much less hours. He's used to 12-hour days, and he wants to do more consulting type of work."
Mhm.
And this morning, now, so we've been talking about this for a few weeks now. That's the general. But this morning we started talking a little more in depth about it, and he said, I just want to really come from a place. I want to influence this healthcare industry with more compassion. And I go, "Oh my God." I said, I do this podcast, and about a year ago or so, I did a podcast with Dr. Stephen Treziak. Jeff's eyes lit up and he goes, "Yeah, Compassionomics, the book. That's what I'm basing everything on." And I
Mm.
like, oh my God, I love that podcast. I love the book. I love the idea. And the other thing, like so often, I just think there's some kind of divine intervention that plays a part in our lives. Yesterday, I had my second meeting with Zoom meeting with my new business mentor, and he's been trying to get me to niche down. And we've been talking about, and I'm like, my favorite industries are safety and health and the healthcare industry. And so here we are. And so he's like, "Healthcare." He goes, "Yeah, a lot going on, a lot to be done there." We talked about it a bit. So then this morning, this comes up, and it's all fallen into place.
Yeah, I like your divine intervention thing, how all things are working together on that.
And we don't
Pretty
have to
cool.
even go there with it, because you could talk about it in less spiritual terms, like The Secret does. They're like, when you set out an intention, you'll just find things and people just all of a sudden showing up in your life. And I think that there's a lot to that once you start to get clear on things. And I've been working on that a lot, and a lot of things have been falling into place, and it's making me very happy. Like, I'm enjoying my days. I'm working very hard these days and enjoying it more than I ever have because it feels right. And I'm very much cognizant of what I'm saying in this venue of Over 50 Starting Over. This is what I want to share is, so the last few years since COVID, like COVID turned everything upside down. It made my business crazy. And I did a lot of searching and a few interviews looking externally for the first time since I was 27. I've been on my own since I was 27. And I've been looking, I was past tense, looking for an employer, and it had to be the right fit. Privately owned, not corporate America. And I wanted to simplify my life and do more strategy instead of everything. Well, here's the thing, folks. I've never said it on this show before. I'll say it now. There is real ageism out there. And when your resume simply goes into another resume of, say, 2,000 applicants, they're using stuff like ZipRecruiter they're putting in criteria to filter out the top
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's
80%.
absolutely right. I
Mhm.
mean, there's no way that they can look through all of those resumes and everything anymore. They've got to use algorithms
Mhm.
to really select the ones that they're looking for. And it points to this very fact, Barry, that really if you're looking for something, it's always referrals are the best way to go.
Oh
It's
yes,
always
Lisa
who
always
you
says that.
know. And when it
Mhm.
comes to this, ageism or whatever, there's all kinds of different discriminations that can be out there.
Yeah.
This kind of is a way to eliminate the algorithms and get right to the point, because really employers are looking for people that have experience, that they have character, and that they're not going to let them down when they hire them. It doesn't
Right.
matter what color they are or how old they are. They were trying to minimize risk, and the referral network is really the best way to do that.
Totally agree. Lisa talks a lot about working LinkedIn, and she'll
Oh,
say all the time that if you're going to apply for something, then apply, then look up on LinkedIn, see who works there, see if you have a connection, and ask for a referral.
oh yeah.
Really huge on that.
LinkedIn is getting better and better all the time. I got to tell you,
Seems like it.
I ran into LinkedIn for the first time in 2011. I'd just gotten laid off from a job, and I got this package where they helped they put me into a program to help me to do a career search. And the first thing they said was, "Have you heard of LinkedIn?" And I hadn't at that time. And they were like, "Get as many people in your network as you possibly
Yeah.
can," and everything. I'm so glad I started doing that back then, because today I use that tool. That's a big part of my career and tool, and I'm using Navigator now, and
Ah.
the really, so it's a paid version of the whole
Mhm.
thing, and it opens up the door to everything if you
Hmm.
apply yourself. One thing I found out, Barry, is that, and I learned this from LinkedIn, is the free LinkedIn, you're you are cut off from about 90% of the people that are in LinkedIn. And I
Wow.
never knew that before. But when you go into the whole Navigator and you really apply yourself to it, you'll find, boy, it just opens up the door to so many different things
Hmm.
that you can do. I don't want to get into all of the different nuances, but I am
This
finding
is
that
good info,
tool.
right?
I'm
Yeah.
finding that tool to be one of the best sales tools that's out there today.
Mm.
And here's one of the greatest things about Navigator is you have an unlimited amount of in messages. So you can really start to use this as a way to grow your network by the best way to do it is by really using the program to target individuals that you want to talk to, and the best way to get them into your network is actually interacting with their posts that they
Mm.
put up and asking questions about, hey, that sounds great, but have you thought about this, or what about this, or how is this affecting, any of those kinds of questions like that, and you start to draw people into a conversation, is how you start to form relationships. And you can form relationships at the highest levels of any organization if you start to do this. And that's what I'm starting to do, and it's working.
Wow, dude, that's really good advice. I actually am working with a salesperson that uses LinkedIn. That's her tool, 100%. She's going to be, and I got this because she's working with one of my clients, and we're bartering. We're trading off some services, and she's going to grow my network exponentially. And I mean, she uses that. Her reputation precedes herself. She uses that at a ninja level, and I think what you're saying is very, very valuable advice. And I'll reiterate, guys, if you are seeking improved employment, modified employment of any kind, Navigator probably is the way to go. And as Merle says, just start a conversation. I know my one client, he it's kind of interesting. He will say, "Hey, I'm just reaching out for feedback. What do you think of this?" And he sends them an advertisement that I created. Just wondering what you think of this, and from a target market point of view, and he gets that engagement right there. That's
I like
really
that.
clever. Yeah.
People love to give advice. I mean, you do it, Barry. I've seen
Yes.
just recently you put some
Yes.
logos out there, and
I do it all the
I
time.
was, and you know, I'm not a huge Facebook person, but I mean, I saw that right away, and I couldn't wait to tell you what my
People
favorite
love
one
it.
was. Yeah, I
I
mean,
within 2 hours, I get 50 responses. So people, so I'll put up logos and I'll number them 1 through 4, 4 versions of a logo, and I ask. I just say design contest time. Which one do you like best? And people love giving their feedback.
that's it. We
And
love to give advice. That's what it is. If somebody
yeah,
asks you for advice, that is a total compliment.
yeah,
It strokes
we
your
get kind of
ego.
giddy. Yeah, there you
Yeah,
go.
yeah. You're like, well, I can't wait to give my advice. And
Because I'm
see,
so smart. Yeah,
that's how you prospect.
yeah.
Get
Oh,
get somebody's advice. It's beautiful. It's so simple, but it works. And
well,
you can do this on LinkedIn very easily.
and for my Facebook studies like that, I get this free valuable input that I get to give to my client upon presenting logos. And what I usually say is, I'm not going to tell you the results of my opinion poll yet. Because I want you to have a fresh look. But I'll tell you, if you ask, I'll tell you. And they always ask. They always ask. And it usually influences them. And a lot of times, like this last one was a tough one because like the first 3 of the 4 were almost tied. And the number one barely beat out the others. Normally, one that I don't suspect far outpulls the other ones. And it's
Huh.
usually a surprise to me, like not the one I would expect. So it's valuable. It's very valuable input.
Well, back to the fact that people love to give advice.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
People also don't want to have something taken away from them.
What do
I
you mean?
found okay, so here's a good one. This is something I love, and I think I learned this from one of those books we were reviewing a couple of years ago. One of them was Never Split the Difference. I can't remember what the other one was, but it's when you're trying to get somebody to respond on email. Have you had this before where you can't get them? You've had a meeting, everything went great. Now you're following up, you're going to do business. They've even promised they're doing business with you, but now
I've
they
had a lot of
disappear.
these.
They
Yeah, I've
won't
had
they won't respond to any of your
sure.
emails or your calls or anything like that. So here's what you do. You send an email and you say, "Hey, Barry, uh, hope you're doing well. Has this project been abandoned?" That's it. Just send it out. You will get a response within the hour. I'm
Well, how do
telling
you
you.
explain that?
I
That's so surprising to me.
I know, right? Because it works every time too. And so here's the deal. You want it if the project has been abandoned, you do want to know that. Like
Yeah.
that's actually a win to know that, so
Okay.
that you can move on. So you almost want the person to say yes because you've been pounding your head against the wall trying to get them to
Uh-huh.
respond. So you have nothing to lose at this point.
Yeah.
You put it out there, and the psychology is either if it's yes, I've abandoned the project, or if it's no, I haven't, which is what you really want. It's the takeaway. Oh, wait a second, I'm about to lose this whole thing. They respond right away. I can't explain it any better than that, Barry, but I have found that works 100% of the time. I mean,
Well,
quickly.
I certainly believe you, though there's always weird things like that, but I still don't understand why. But
Yeah.
it's a cool tip.
It is.
Great
It's
tip.
it's it's the take. I'll tell you, it's all based on the takeaway. If
Right.
you, it's just like when this was great when I was a kid. My brother was a handful for my mom. My dad, he would be an angel when my dad was around, but then
Yeah.
when my dad would leave, he'd turn into the Tasmanian devil. And but my mom would use these little psychological tricks on him that were so simple, but that I could even understand. I'm like,
Uh-huh.
he would be just driving her crazy, and she would be like, "Why don't you go out in the backyard and play?" And he would be like, "No, he would not go outside and play. He wanted to be in there and bother my mom." Until she realized that she would say, "Scott, you are not allowed to go out into the backyard."
Oh
And
my
I just
God.
want to go out into the backyard. Oh, okay. It's let them out there.
Oh, that's
It
so
works
funny.
every time. It worked at the amusement park too, at Jog Lake. I mean, with the takeaway, it works. I mean, we don't want to lose anything. We don't want to lose anything.
I think that's called reverse psychology, isn't it?
I guess.
I think. Interesting. And I am just sitting here looking like all of a sudden, okay, a light cloud is going by, but it has been brighter than the sun in here. I should have pulled the shades before the show because I'm so backlit that the image is terrible. So my apologies for that, but we're powering through anyway. But what I wanted to get to with my point to what I was talking about just the great conversation I had with this guy who's a pediatrician, and
Pulmonary.
yeah, lung stuff, and the talk that I had with my business coach and how it's all coming together, and after a couple years of literally applying for easily 200 different jobs and only having a couple of interviews, a couple that I thought were going great, and telling you, of course, too, that I'm sure that at least 80% of my resumes never made it in front of a human being's eyes
I
because,
believe that.
because there is an ageism thing going on for sure. And I heard someone say, it's like a meme or something. It's the very same people that want us to work till 70 won't hire us after 50. That's funny. And it's
Yeah, no
there's a
kidding,
lot of
right?
truth to that. So
Yeah.
here's my point and we started out this show, I talked a lot about this, is consultancy is bigger than ever. And I think for those of us over 50, it's probably the most viable option
Yeah.
because because getting hired at this age is a lot harder. Depending on the field you're in, but most fields. And the other thing is you've never had more experience in your life. You are the expert. And here's another thing. This will open up some eyes as well. I went out on my own at 27 years old because I worked my way up to the creative director role of a small agency and found that all I was doing was a lot of paperwork and managing people so much. So I went out on my own, and then I get to basically choose what I get to work on for a large part. And I really, really enjoy my work. But now at my age, all of a sudden I turned 58. I'm seeing all my clients retire and all
Yeah.
of this kind of stuff. I never thought about that happening. And I really didn't. It just all of a sudden started happening. And geez, all the health problems and stuff. And I just had the realization, it's like, hey, the natural progression of this kind of a career is that I actually manage younger people.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, you're right.
that's what I've been doing. I put on some people in the last 2 weeks that setting up Google Analytics for me for everything I want to do. I want measured. I want proof of ROI, return on investment, with everything I touch. That's kind of my value proposition. And I've always done that, but I've always been this one to do everything myself, just the blue collar attitude. And it's ridiculous because I can't, because everything's more and more complex today. And it's exhausting. So I am working. So with that, I got somebody else working, doing Google AdWords and search. It's called off-page search engine optimization.
Mm.
I do the on-page search engine optimization when I'm building a website and developing content. I use AI at a whole nother level these days. I'm now on the premium ChatGPT, and it's blowing my mind.
Tell me more about that because
Sure.
most people that have the chat experience are not having the experience with the paid version, which is
Day
I
and
guess
night.
you're saying day and night. Why is it day and night?
Well, the 3.5, which is the free version, has not been fed information since 2021.
Mhm.
And it does not have access to the internet. And so it just is what it is. Chat 4, I do this. I like, go look at this website and tell me how it can be improved. It instantly tells me how it can be improved. I never even opened it up. And so it has access to other websites.
Wow.
It has access to anything. You and I had this conversation, and this could lead us on a whole another path, but I'll say briefly, I wanted to challenge. Let me finish answering your question about how is it better. Let me pull something up.
What are the fees? What is it expensive?
$20 a month.
Oh,
And
okay.
it's for someone like me, it's a no-brainer. So it can also, chat itself can also generate imagery, and this is the website of my safety and my electrical
Oh, yeah,
safety
yeah, I
guy.
remember this one. Yeah.
Mhm. And so I just designed this a couple months ago, always adding to it. And the content is massaged through chat, and it's an e-commerce site that we're selling all of these classes. And here's the point is, see these images?
Yeah.
I developed them with chat. Let me open this one up.
Okay.
And the articles, I write these with my client Brian's suggestion on subject matter, just general stuff, and then I flesh it out with ChatGPT. Now you don't just throw something in there and then copy and paste it in here. I really nuance it. I will say, I've said it before, articles like this used to take me 2.5 hours to develop, but write on my own. I'd be using Google for research and writing them. Now they take me about an hour. So I do them with chat, and then I ask it certain questions to make it more specific. And I definitely make it more specific. So this generated from chat as well. These images, I told it to make this guy, I forget the exact prompts that I use, but working on an electric motor in a factory setting. I want a blue cast to it. Just my brand development. I have orange, yellow, and blue casts that I use for the photos. It's just part of the brand.
Yeah.
And then there's just certain characteristics that I add that enhance the search engine. The keywords. I put keywords
The
in.
content though is coming from your client, or
No, it's coming from chat. It's coming from the research I have it do. I will have it. I'll have it. I'll ask it how to repair a servo motor. And then it always does the same format, a lot of these bulleted items. And I know that Google sees that as chat stuff right away. So I from there, I ask it specifics. I'll ask it, okay, now give me a 1 or 2 paragraph summary of what you just told me. I want to use that as my opening paragraph, and I will use that. And I'll say, give me 10 options for titles. And then I'll choose one of the 10 for the title.
Okay.
And then I'll also say, please give me a final thoughts. I don't say final thoughts. I always use that because I know that that's a Google friendly headline for searching.
Okay.
And I'll say, give me a summary. And note, I put things in there like this: get your workers qualified electrical maintenance repair with electrical tech skills in just 4 days. That's all me. There's times that I make this look like it's coming from my client, Brian, and I will put a quote in there that's from him and so on. So I use chat in those regards. Let's just go ahead and get out of here. And
now let me ask a question real quick, because couldn't I do that with, I don't know, not the images, but the content I can do with chat today, correct? Without
the
having
free
to
version?
pay the $20 a month.
Yes, you can, but
I've done all those things.
Yeah, it definitely has a lot more nuance if you use the paid version. And I want to show you something else. I was not
I know
prepared to do
we're
this,
going off the rails here, but that's what we do.
That's fine, because I'm going to show you something really cool.
All right. I'm ready to have my mind blown.
Oh, I had been developing this book, and it's kind of like directed, I don't want to say a kid's book. It's more like a teen kind of book. It's based on a recurring dream that I used to have. And I am going to pause for.
Let's go back to your.
Okay. So I did find this stuff, and let's share the screen. Because, I wanted to show you this image that I think is very, very interesting.
Whoa.
So, yes.
Is that on a show or something?
All right, here's my prompt. I'll tell you all about the concept too. My prompt is, it's telling me back, here are the sea goggles that you liked, an image of high-tech retro-looking goggles with dials for calibration designed to look like they were found in an ancient
they really do.
And that's exactly what I told it. And isn't it crazy? And I know you guys listening, I don't think I've ever seen that. I know of what you're talking about though. But my concept is from a recurring dream where I grew up. Remember, it was like Stand By Me. We had
I grew up
forest,
in the same kind of place. Yeah.
We called it the gully, which was down this hill. There was a swamp down a big hill. We used to sled right on the hill and stuff. And on the hill where we would sled ride, it was all brush for most of the area, but it was clear where we used to sled ride. And in my dream, we were exploring the brush part of the hill that you really could never access. And well, we found this old iron door, and we cleared the moss away from it and all of the brush and everything. And, you know, got sticks and everything and pried it open. And it was big and heavy and hard to open. And when we opened it, and there's this gigantic cavern with an ancient ship, like a Viking ancient ship propped up in there, like all thousands of years old. And then all of these ghouls started crawling out of it and started chasing us. And I ran home, and like as fast as I could, I ran through the front door, slammed the door, and then I look out. And my friend, my neighbor, is going, "Barry, open the door." He's got all these ghouls right on his butt. And that's when I woke up.
That is a great one.
That's when I woke up.
Wow.
And I had that dream 3 times as a kid.
Oh my gosh.
And in my exploration of this in my mind, I was developing this. It's been ever since. It's been decades that I've had this on my mind, that we actually go exploring in this ship and we find these kinds of artifacts, if you will, tools. And the one kid, which would be my character because it's my dream, would put these on, and they were kind of attached to him. They would kind of regulate to his person, to his body, and become something of a superhero. And that whole neighborhood plays a role in this. There's the school. It's my neighborhood too. And
right.
And there's the school, and there's a fire, and he's using this nautical equipment to put out the fire, and all of this kind of stuff. I got the main antagonist, based on one of the neighbors that we had that we didn't like growing up. And I used chat. I said, what is the outline of a basic hero's journey? And it gave me a big, long outline of the 12 different steps. And in Act 1, you're setting the scene, developing characters. In Act 2, there's the conflict that the hero fails at. Like there's this, for me, it would have been cowardice, I would say. As a kid, I wasn't the daring one as a kid, but I was later on. And so that cowardice would rear its ugly head in the middle of the story and show you. And so in Act 3, when the big thing happens, then I overcome the cowardice and save the day. And that's the hero's journey.
Yes.
And so it laid it out in like 12 chapters. Well, there's the 12 chapters of my book. And then so that's where all of this came from. And folks, I'm sharing all that with you because if you have this idea, it is 100% feasible to do. Now, I'm using Chat 4.0, which you can develop this imagery with. You can't do that with 3.5.
Yeah, right.
But you can do the whole writing and the layout of the story, as I just told you. I did that with 3.5.
So Barry, I love what you're saying here. As you're talking about it, I'm thinking, okay, so if I wanted to write a book, this would be a great guide. But then I started thinking, how easy would it be for me to just let chat write it for me? And that is probably a tempting pitfall for many people.
Yeah.
And I wonder if there are books out there on the shelf that are being published right now.
For sure.
That they really didn't write. Chat wrote it.
There's so much to that. Because there's a lot of limitations as of today. And I can show you so many things that are so fascinating. I'm trying to find one with the imagery, but okay. There's how I developed this imagery. Let me show you some severe limitations. So I wanted to develop, and I've been wanting to develop certain characters for that particular company, Electrical Tech Skills.
Right.
And I developed this one originally. I told it to make a factory worker that's qualified to work on electrical equipment. I want it to be this size, tinted orange. And I came up with this guy, and I said, okay, please name this guy Tom and remember this character. I want to use him in the future. And then, so I wanted a basic worker like my client would train, okay, for electrical
Right.
technical skills. And then I wanted, and so I said to create this worker tinted in orange. And I've been using this. My
That
client
is
was
a
blown
cool
away by
shot
this.
right there. I like that.
Right, right. And here's what I said. A picture of a factory worker who's qualified to work on electrical equipment, working on a motor, tinted orange. And this is what it came up with, man. Jesus.
I mean, it's just how that's mind blowing right
it's
there.
mind blowing. It's
Come
so
on.
mind blowing. And so you start to get your mind so blown that you think it can do anything. Well, here's Tom again. Tom looks totally different this time and too wimpy. So I told it that make a little more muscular, just a little more muscular with a yellow hard hat and a yellow cast to the photo. Totally different guy.
It's like
right?
yeah.
Okay. So now, here's my
It's
point.
really crazy.
I want to, yeah. Okay. So this is Tom again. So I want to develop these characters so I could really create a tight brand. And now, I did not ask for permission. This is my client. And I want to make a representation of him, not exact, but I want the trainer. I want a character of the trainer too. So I could use this character of the trainer and Tom, the worker, as I want, where I want. And so I said, I want to create a character that looks similar to this photo, 53 years old, electrical safety maintenance trainer. So take a look at this photo and create this character. So I created this character and I said, okay, pretty good. But he's holding let's see what I say here.
A fuse box.
Just a little more handsome, hair combed straight back, not parted on the side, no overalls, button up the shirt and simplify the fuse box. Fuse box, I don't care about. Button up the shirt, roll down the sleeves. Look what he gave.
Okay, I don't know. A little bit handsome. He turned him into 007.
Pierce Brosnan.
Yes, exactly.
Shirt is not buttoned up. Sleeves are not buttoned up. So here's the next attempt. I kept trying different attempts. I kept trying to refine this. I want him looking more like a regular guy, less like a model. And say, here's another picture of him. Okay, 10 pounds heavier. Look at this guy. Shirt completely unbuttoned. And so I got to the point. Look at this hair. Look at this hair.
Yeah, that doesn't look like a factory worker.
Right. So I keep saying, slightly combed back, button up shirt. The sleeves have to be buttoned up too, professional. And so I got to the point where I said, I have this relationship developed with this thing at this point. This wasn't bad, but look at the shirt. And so I start saying, what is wrong with this picture? You tell me and it's telling me, the sleeves are not rolled down and the shirt is not completely buttoned up and it can't do it. So every time I'm trying to refine this character and it gives me a different character every time. I cannot reproduce the same character. I cannot get that shirt buttoned up and I can't get those sleeves rolled down.
And this is the paid version that,
yes,
but you can't. It's interesting.
So there are limitations.
Okay. So that's where you
Okay. So now
that sounds extremely frustrating, by the way.
It is extremely frustrating. You and I let's talk about other limitations. You and I had this conversation.
Oh, I'm so glad you're bringing this up.
Well, I wish I had at my fingertips, I had the version that I sent you because I underlined the important part.
I think I can, while you're doing that, go through it. I'll see if I can pull that up.
Here is basically what the argument I had with the paid version, ChatGPT 4. I said, do you have a political slant in your response to political questions? It says, I'm designed to provide information responses that are neutral and unbiased, blah, blah, blah. And I said, okay, this is where it gets good. I said, okay, what is a brief definition of a fascist society? This is so good right here. So it says, and mind you, what I approach this with is principles of argument. It's a philosophy class I took in college where if you could present, say, 4 to 5 premises that are irrefutable, you ask these questions, you get an answer back that somebody agrees to, then the final conclusion must be fact. That's principles of argument. That is what I'm using here. So I say, what is a brief definition of fascist society? A fascist society, it says, is typically characterized by authoritarian rule, strong nationalism, suppression of the political opposition and dissent, control of the media, and a focus on military, how do you say that?
Militarism.
Militarism and racial purity. In a fascist society, the government exerts tight control over many aspects of life, including economic, social, and cultural activities, often promoting a single party state and the glorification of the state or a leader above individual rights and freedoms. I'd say that's a really good definition.
I would say that it's absolutely BS.
You say that definition's BS?
Absolutely.
Well, please
first,
explain.
okay, so first off, there's a difference between Nazism and fascism.
Okay.
Nazism actually includes racism. Fascism does not. The first fascist state was Italy. The black shirts under Mussolini had nothing to do with racism whatsoever.
Hmm.
What it does have to do with is a tyrannical government. It's not about we the people. It's a combination of the authority of government and the authority of business combined together to create policy that benefits an elite few people. Everybody else is part of the machine. That's exactly what we have happening here today.
Oh, I would say
This
yes, absolutely.
throws us right off the scent of
Mm.
what we have today. In
Mm.
fact, fascism has been mistaught since World War II, because at the time we were fighting fascism, we were a fascist state ourselves, including, and we could take it to the next level, Nazism. We ourselves were perpetrating the same thing Hitler was doing by persecuting black people and relegating them to the fringes of society. We were doing the same. My dad wasn't even allowed to go to high school because of this. So
Wow.
this is so we had to change the definition of what fascism was so that people wouldn't realize that we are actually the enemy that we're saying that we're fighting.
Well, that's very interesting.
And so it's been like that ever since. If you're trying to get a good definition of fascism, it makes sense that I'm so glad you picked fascism because it just goes to show you that there are people behind the scenes that do not want you to know what it is. And they want you to think that a fascist is Donald Trump. Donald Trump is not the fascist. What is fascism is what is being perpetrated as democracy today.
Well, I have not been able to understand how you can consider Trump a fascist. Like, and I mean this in an unbiased way. I try to put myself into the opposition, and I'm not a Trump guy. I really.
You've made that so clear for the last several years. Nobody even needs to hear that.
Nah, I'm sure.
Funny that you're saying it. You're a freedom guy. That's what you are. I am
a freedom guy.
You're an American patriot. That's what you are. And you see something wrong with our system. And unfortunately, they've demonized this guy named Donald Trump so much that you have to say that when you're trying to support the country.
That's true. So let's go back to that. How, like I said, I try to put myself in their shoes, empathize so I can understand. I can't understand how they can say Donald Trump is a fascist when it's just somebody's trying to elect while other people are trying to demonize him and tear him down and interfere with the election. How is he a fascist?
This was the point of changing the definition of fascism so that it could be used as a weapon against those that a political elite does not like. It's sort of like conspiracy theory. If you say, oh, you're a conspiracy theorist, suddenly you've taken away that person's credibility. It's the same thing with calling somebody a fascist. If you call somebody a fascist, nobody really knows what a fascist is. They just know it's bad. And so you call them a fascist and now they're done. That's why they're calling Donald Trump a fascist, but the way that they can't explain it is that, well, it's because he's a Nazi. Really, he's a Nazi. You know, his grandchildren are Jewish, right? Like that doesn't. Like, can you imagine Hitler with some Jewish grandchildren? I mean, that's just not going to work.
Well, the irony about Hitler,
you can't.
The irony about Hitler is that he was all about the Aryan race, and he was not an Aryan at all himself.
That's it. That's the other thing. So it's, this whole thing. It's funny how chat answered it, and I see chat being very much weaponized into a woke machine. In fact, in the news today, there's some really interesting stuff about what's happening with AI. Google to fix it.
Before we go there, I want to just say about that article, that argument I was having with chat, is that I'm just going to explain. I took every one of its definitions and I showed how the far left, has been doing exactly every one of those definitions of fascism.
Yeah, go back to that, because there was really important stuff there. Mind blowing, actually.
Okay, I hope this is it. I can't really tell. We'll find out. Is that it?
Yep.
Okay. So I said, so then if a given party weaponizes mainstream media, social media, and search engines against the political opponent and censors the same media for their party's benefit, they may be fascists? Question mark. And then it's
a great question.
The use of media manipulation, censorship, and control for political advantage can be indicative of authoritarian tendencies, which is a characteristic of fascism. However, it's important to note that not all forms of media control. This is where it goes into this BS that it just spews out every time I challenge it. It says, in assessing whether a party or government exhibits fascist tendencies, it's crucial to consider overall context and presence of other authoritarian. It's just, okay, this is spin. It's just a murky spin from there. So I reply, yes. So in addition to the above, this same party also segregates people via race and sex and oppresses one race and sex above others. This same party demonizes their opponents and don't tolerate their expression. Now, are they fascist? So it gives spin again. The additional characteristics you describe, segregating people by race, oppressing certain groups, demonizing opponents, and not tolerating dissent, do align more closely with fascist tendencies. Fascism often involves promoting a homogeneous national or racist identity. Racial identity, yeah. That's important to say it that way. Suppressing minority groups and using propaganda. However, it's important to the spin. The term fascist carries significant historical and political weight. Its application should be based on political analysis and blah, blah, blah. It's just spin.
So it's totally not telling you what fascism is. Basically, what I'm hearing is, if you don't like the government that you have and you feel like your opinions aren't being heard, it's fascism.
Yeah. So I say, correct. Therefore, based on the evidence presented, we must conclude the far left in the USA are fascist. Thank you. So now I'm messing with it. And this is when it starts saying, it's really interesting that I don't want to spend too much time on this, but it starts saying, I keep arguing with it, that it's giving me these definitions. Oh, okay. The term far left, it says, chat says, the term far left can encompass a wide range of political beliefs and movements, some of which might advocate for more authoritarian measures, while others emphasize social equality, anti-racism, anti-authoritarianism. Oh, that one got me. So I reply, you suggest the far left have, in quotes, others emphasize social equality, anti-racism, and anti-authoritarianism. I say, no, they do not. They insist on racism and sexism against white men. And they insist the nation and state comply with DEI compliance. Therefore, the far left conforms to the full definition of fascist. Thank you again for clarifying this. I understand your perspective, it says, and it's clear you have strong concerns about certain actions and policies. And it says the concept of DEI is intended to promote inclusivity and equal opportunities for all. Oh boy, this got me here. Equal opportunities for all individuals, regardless of their background, regardless of the interpretation, blah, blah, blah. And then it gives spin. I say DEI is intended at the very core to discriminate white people and more so white males. So again, you help me prove that the left is fascist. Thank you. And it says, I understand. It starts saying this every time. I understand you have strong views on this topic. And I continue to argue with it, and it continues to say, I
I
understand you have
see that.
strong,
Yeah. All
yeah,
down it.
all the way
Oh,
down here.
I
And
apologize if my response.
yeah, okay, yes. Okay, yes,
Wow.
I do say you clearly have bias programmed into your algorithm. And it says, I apologize. And Merle, I took this farther over a couple nights than what you saw. And I'll show you. I apologize. It says, I apologize if my responses give you that impression. My aim is to provide balanced and impartial information, blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
I said, this is new to you, Merle. I said, you repeatedly gave me the feedback, quote, it's clear that you have strong views on this matter. How could you assess my mental state when you can't see or hear me? It says, you're right. I don't have the ability to assess your mental state. I apologize if my response came across that way. My intention was to acknowledge the strength of your convictions based on language, blah, blah, blah. If you have more questions, I'm here. I say, but since you repeated that assumption several times, it seems you are programmed to make this assumption. Is that correct? I'm not programmed to make assumptions on your mental state. This is getting interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
My responses are generated based on language and content of the conversation. That's kind of interesting. It's a telltale sign. My
Mm-hmm.
responses are generated based on the language and content of the conversation. If I repeated a phrase, it's likely because it's a common way to acknowledge the strength of someone's opinions in a discussion.
Mm-hmm.
So I say, you said, quote, it's a common way to acknowledge the strength of someone's opinions. But I wasn't given opinions. I was stating premises to reach an irrefutable conclusion. This is called principles of logic philosophy. Since you repeatedly insist that I've replied with opinions and emotions, I have to assume that you've been programmed to gaslight. Is that correct? Isn't that funny? And you're the one that
Yes.
pointed it out. You're
That's what it
being,
is. This is all oh, good boy, Barry. That's,
uh-huh.
very nice. But really, the smart people over here have
Yes.
determined this,
There
and
you go. And
quit
so this
being a
is
dummy.
the final thing it said. I apologize if my response has come across as dismissive or implying that your statements were purely opinion based. My intention was to engage with the points you raised and to provide a balanced perspective. I'm not programmed to gaslight or manipulate the conversation. I think that was a lie right there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, my goal is to facilitate constructive and respectful dialogue. And it does sound like part of it, I'm going to be honest, part of its programming is to continue to, I don't want to say stir the pot, but continue to give alternative. What I want to do is I want to facilitate the same conversation. I think you'd call it steel manning a conversation against the right, and see if I can do the exact same thing, but using the right as examples. I want to see what its responses will be.
Interesting. This whole thing is very interesting because I, we see where this is all going, and that AI is going to write books for us. It's going
Oh
to
yeah,
it's going to answer the phone for businesses. We're going to think we're talking to a person, and it's not really a person. But we can see through this that this has been programmed with a certain political agenda. And I'm not saying that it's, when I say political, I don't mean Republican or Democrat, but I do mean very political from a
mm-hmm.
worldly perspective, because this isn't just an American thing. This is a world domination thing that we're looking at right
Yeah.
here. And this is the intent, is to dominate our world. Interestingly, as we're talking about this yesterday, this article came out about how AI is being used in Google, and I found this almost unbelievable until I saw this being reported by several different news agencies here today. But here it is that Google, to fix AI imaging after generating historical images without white people. It says here, Google will pause the image generation feature of its artificial intelligence tool, Gemini, after the model refused to create images of white people. The
Wow.
Alphabet-owned company apologized Wednesday after users on social media flagged that Gemini's image generator was creating inaccurate historical images that sometimes replaced white people with images of Black, Native, and Asian
Wow.
people. Here's a quote. We are aware that Gemini is offering inaccuracies in some historical image generation depictions. Let me just read this next one. Gemini's racially diverse image output comes amid longstanding concerns around racial bias within AI models. That's really what we're talking about, is that AI is biased, and you
Yeah.
just proved it, especially a lack of representation from minorities and people of color. Oh, really? This is NBC saying this. Such bias can directly harm people who rely on AI algorithms, such as in healthcare settings, where AI tools can affect healthcare outcomes of hundreds of millions of patients. Um, okay, let's see here. I want to see if I can pull something up, because I mean, I saw images yesterday. I'm having a hard time with this. I saw images yesterday where they were like, show a picture of, oh, oh, this is great. This is hopefully, do I have the share feature here
Oh,
going?
I don't think so. One second. I wish it would just
Okay, I
default.
got some Nazi. We were talking about Nazis earlier,
Uh-huh.
so I'm
Uh-huh.
gonna show you a picture of some Nazis here. There they are. There's the Nazis. This is
I'm
what
not
they.
seeing it yet.
Oh shoot. There
It's
we go.
okay. There we go.
Look at those.
Jeez.
Those are. This is what AI generated. So you got a Black Nazi, you
Wow.
got an Asian Nazi, and it was. It would not make. I mean, how many
Well, the
Black
first one
Nazis
looks
were there?
accurate.
Okay, yeah, that guy looks like a Nazi, but I mean, what about these two?
Definitely not.
and
Yeah, I know that it's really bizarre. Now here's a
you should have seen, there was so much more of this. It's like,
oh,
okay, so obviously it's a real thing, but it just points to the fact that they built. This is our preview of how this is going to go, and how this is going to be weaponized against us, how this is going to be used to change history, to make
yes.
history completely different. We're, you know, one thing that I'm concentrated on, if you look behind me, all these books, I think it's important to have books now, because if you take a look at, well, one of the books I have back here is Mao's America, and I talked about this in one of the
Yeah.
shows, that She Van Fleet talks about how during the Cultural Revolution, these young gangs of the Red Guard, they called it, they're young people, gangs of them would just come into your house, ransack your house, take all your books. Books were banned, all of them.
Wow.
So they would take your books and burn them, and all your jewelry and things like that as well. But it was very important that they took history away. And interestingly, I'm reading this book right now. This is a
Thomas
biography
Sowell. Mm.
of Thomas Sowell. I am very much a Thomas Sowell fan, so
Mhm.
much that I'm drinking my coffee, and it's Thomas Sowell on my coffee
Oh,
cup. So
that's funny.
I love this guy, and I love him for his brain.
Mm.
He reminds me of my father. My dad had a BS meter
Hmm.
in it that was probably the most accurate. Like, he could smell BS from a mile away, right?
Sure.
And this guy is like,
Yeah.
people tell you, they try to butter you up with all this stuff, and he sees right through it. He'll tell you exactly what's going on. But interestingly, in this biography of him, he's talking about his experience as a professor at Cornell University during the 60s. He was there basically for the whole decade. While Xi Van Fleet is talking about the Cultural Revolution in China and what happened in China, with basically education was a big deal, where they eliminated education, and they closed down all the schools, and they turned all the kids into thugs that intimidated all the older people, and basically destroyed the whole society that way,
Hmm.
which gave Mao Zedong complete authority over all of China. He managed that and made that happen. But what she says in her book, Mao's America, is that at the exact same time, a different kind of cultural revolution that had been sponsored by China was now happening here in the United States at the same time. And Thomas Sowell is not talking about in this biography, they're not saying, oh, it's the Cultural Revolution, but I'm drawing a correlation between what happens from the beginning of the 60s to the end of the 60s. And here we have the civil rights movement that's happening, which is supposed to be all good. But what Thomas Sowell is seeing is a degradation of our educational system. And we're
That's
seeing
putting it mildly.
We're seeing classrooms being or classroom agenda or curriculum being dictated by the students rather than by the professors or the administration. They're saying this is what we want to learn, which turns into mostly activism.
Yes.
This is where you have like the Pan-African studies classes coming in and everything. You're bringing in teachers now that are Black teachers that just aren't prepared to be teachers whatsoever.
Right.
And now the students aren't really learning anything. You've got teachers letting the students not come to class so that they can participate in protests. Right. So they're all it's all becoming very activist. The whole cultural or the whole thing about getting more Black people involved in higher paying jobs. What Thomas Sowell
it's almost mandated today.
We have to provide an education for Black people to be able to rise to the level so that they can get, when they get into these positions, they can thrive. They not just survive, but he found that the activists out there were quickly only concerned with the quota numbers and not concerned at all about preparing them through education, and therefore and these Black students that were coming on to campus that were very unprepared were suddenly subject, or they were easy pickings for demagogues who would come in and say, your problem is because white people have put you in this terrible position. And so these people were easily picked off as new disgruntled activists, much like Black Lives Matter. And back then you had the Black Panthers and you had the Black Power movement. This broke down our society. The quota system didn't help Black people to attain more prominent jobs. It actually, if you saw the trajectory of jobs for Black people coming up to the 60s, it was coming up and up and up. But once that civil rights movement passed, it went down and down and down. And it's interesting how we actually went through a similar cultural revolution as the one that was happening with Mao Zedong. We're still dealing with this cultural revolution here today, and it's getting so much worse.
It is. Now, I want to say another thing, a parallel with Mao. Mao rose to fame, infamy, whatever, on the back of aspired politically on the back of women's rights. Is that he?
Yes.
Yeah, he was all promoting equality for women. So once again, it's a Trojan horse. It's a wolf in sheep's clothing is what it is. And you're right. Correct. That's exactly what's happening here with everybody. Now they have to go so far. Like, well, you have your laws and rights. You are equal in front of the law. Well, that's not good enough. Now we have to virtue signal in order to rise to this status of being just so empathetic. The bottom line is what it has created in this society is this simple. We promote victimhood. And so everybody in schools, the students now are learning that if you can find your victimhood, then you can identify your oppressor, and that's how you rise to so-called equality. This is somehow how equality emerges from that. And we're being told every day 2 + 2 = 5 every day. That's what that is. You're
right. And this is the formula to break down the society, Barry. I mean, you're exactly right. When we go down this path of victim versus or oppressed versus oppressor, we know that there's very little way out of that hole,
right?
Except for a complete societal breakdown. And this is exactly what happened during the Cultural Revolution. It broke the country. Actually, they had to do a full reverse on what they had done.
Mike cut out for a second.
I was saying that it broke down the country completely in China under Mao Zedong, where they had to do a complete reversal of his policies. And actually, this is where new leadership came into China, and they had to open up trade with the West because they weren't going to survive the onslaught of the poverty that Mao Zedong had created. But we're seeing the evolution of that cultural revolution happening here in the United States. It happened very quickly in China, but the United States, with all its freedoms, it's taken much longer. But you see now how this has been embedded into our society, and now there is an accelerant, which is social media and being able to use these programs like ChatGPT and infusing that with search engines like Google. You can see exactly how they can change everything by change the whole mindset of not just our country, but the whole world. And as we look at it, we can see the effectiveness of their plan. Go ahead, Barry.
And this is why, coming right back to the, really blow things up, this is why I totally understand the popularity of Trump. Because I think I know that like my aunt and uncle are staunch Christians, and I love them dearly, and they're huge Trump supporters. I always find that dichotomy to be like, for very committed Christians to be such staunch Trump supporters, and many, many are. I find that like, how do you reconcile that? I kind of see that as anointing Satan as your figurehead.
How
almost.
So?
Because if the situation were reversed and it was somebody on the left that was hugely popular and elected president, and then the whole scandal came out with just the porn star scandal, just the what's the word? Cheating.
Infidelity.
Yes, infidelity. Just that alone would turn off Christians so much, and that would be used as fuel. Just that alone. But there's so many other things about Trump as well, where I don't think that he has any true faith at all. I'm not saying any of this to bash him. I want to get back to saying why I understand the staunch support for him. And that is because these very same people understand the critical mass that this country is at right now. And Trump has proven to be the only one with the sheer balls and ego, I suppose, or self-confidence, whatever it is, probably just extreme narcissism. Everything is water off a duck's back with this guy. I mean, the attacks he's been under since being the victor in the primaries that shocked that day, everybody panicked. Everybody left of center panicked. The entire media on that day did it about face. They went into panic mode and have been doing every underhanded thing they can to incarcerate him, to sue him, to impeach him, you name it. And Trump just still sits there, water off a duck's back, and keeps going forward. How many people could do that?
I don't know anybody. I don't know anybody that could face that kind of pressure that he's facing. I wonder many times how he does. I mean, sometimes I hear about what he's dealing with, and I start to feel anxiety.
Yeah,
and I would just wonder, like, how he can do that. My understanding is that he actually is a born again Christian. That is what I've been told. There's a pastor that I very much respect that tells me that she has led him to Christ. And that happened early on in his presidency, just before he became president. With that aside, though, because who knows? I don't.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I believe that.
I can't judge that.
I can't prove or disprove. So
no one. I can't either. However, what I can say is this: is that Christians in general support Trump because he supports the policies that Christians believe in. What we saw during the Biden administration was, in many states, churches got shut down. This is a violation of our First Amendment rights, something that Trump was vehemently against. I mean, I'm just picking out just one example here, that the person of Trump seems to line up very well with what's in our Constitution, and he seems to rule by that. Now, he's not perfect. Nobody is as the president, but I think from a Christian point of view, we see the Declaration of Independence being rooted in our liberties that come from God, and that our country and our government has no business creating rights or granting rights, only allowing rights that come from that are granted from God. That's how our country rolls, and nothing should interfere with that. And that appears to be the policies of the Trump administration. I'm not saying that I back everything that he's about as a Christian, but I would say if I were going to choose between the two, I'm going to choose the way lesser evil than the one that we're going down right now. And
Well,
I think
for sure.
personal responsibility, another Christian mainstay, is something that I believe that Trump is espousing, and Biden is not.
For sure.
Take a look at the recent bailouts of our student loans. I don't know about you, Barry, but I paid my way through college, and the fact is that these people got loans and got to go.
They're
through
giving
college.
our money. Our money.
And that's why do I got to pay these people's loans?
Be unconstitutional.
And you say it's got to be, and let me prove it to you. Article 1 of the Constitution is where it talks about our legislative branch. Article 2 talks about our executive branch, the president. Article 1 states right at the beginning that the sole responsibility for the checkbook is in the legislature. It starts with the House of Representatives. Article 2 has no say about any of the purse money. The president has no business volunteering funds that are in the public coffers to pay for loan forgiveness. First off, why are you, who put anybody in authority to forgive loans?
Well, here's the bottom line. They're using taxpayer dollars to buy votes. That's using exactly my money to buy votes.
It's a bribe. It's a bribe, and it's theft.
So angry. And then we got the border situation. So we could go on and on about that, but I want to get back to the Trump thing, because like I said, I understand that, he's a bull in a china shop, keeps plowing forward through a mess of entanglement of authoritarianism that I just on a daily basis, I see revealed to me. That still is, I'm astonished about what has happened in this country. Now, here is a big ray of hope in my mind. So it certainly appears to me that Trump will be the next president. Who he picks for vice president is extremely important. And for me, if he were to pick Vivek Ramaswamy, I would be elated, because that would mean that Vivek would likely be the next president after Trump. And here's the thing. I've listened to a lot of Vivek on podcasts. I know that he could take a look at the healthcare system and tell you how to straighten it out. And then he could appoint and get the right people on that. And it can't be done in 4 years, maybe not 8 years or whatever, but he could put a plan in place. Now, I think if Trump were to be able to listen to Vivek, they could get a lot on track and a lot started. But I think Trump's superpower is simply being able to hammer the wrong people down. And that's a good superpower. But I think Vivek has the ability and the intelligence to see things for what they are and understand them and how to fix them.
I think that you are exactly right here. I think that Vivek is probably the best choice for vice president, as long as those two egos can be in the same room together.
Yeah, that's a big one. Yeah.
They definitely have egos, but I also think that Trump may have okay. If you take a look at Trump's last term in office, one of the biggest criticisms that I have of him, and one of the things I was most astounded by, was his lack of ability to select a cabinet that would actually not turn on him and stab him in the back.
Yeah, but he's so abrasive that.
Well, why would you get Omarosa? Why would you put
Oh, right.
Omarosa on your staff right away? I mean, we already saw what she did on the show, The
Probably to
Apprentice.
check a box, dude.
She
Probably to
stabbed
check
him
a
in the
box.
back on The Apprentice, and then he brought her back again, which maybe to check a box, but she was probably the worst choice. Jeff Sessions, who recused himself from the collusion thing on day one, that was another bad pick. He picked what was the guy, the national security. I mean, the guy wrote a book. They just all the books that came out from his cabinet just said, "Oh, Trump, whatever."
Yeah,
This is he's going to have to do a much better job of picking the people around him. And
that's
I
a good
think,
point.
and I'll give him this, that he was a freshman in Washington last
Mm,
time around, and
mm.
he was there to drain the swamp. And I don't think he realized how deep that swamp was.
I don't think any of us did.
I think that he did a great job, even through blunders, of exposing the depth of the swamp. And it's probably a lot deeper than we think it is even today.
Yeah.
And I think coming around the next time, I think his opponents know that he's got their number.
Mm.
And I think they're extremely afraid. To that point, Barry, this is funny, man.
Mhm.
The news is today that Trump has mental cognition problems. I don't know if you knew that, but yeah, he's got. It looks like he might have Alzheimer's, according to the press, because they're saying that he in his last speech he forgot a date. They said it was an important date. He said,
My
"Don't forget to
God.
vote in November 17th primary," and it was actually March 17th. So now they're saying, "Oh my God, look at Trump. He can't
No
remember
one,
anything."
almost no one takes the press seriously anymore. Okay, this is the same press that talked about his mental faculties during his presidency, and look who they put in power.
Yeah,
Okay, this is the same press that constantly said he's going to get us into World War III. Now, look
yeah,
what they've done in the last 3
right,
years.
right.
I mean,
Here it
we're in
is.
like 5 different wars.
Trump's Michigan rally blunders fuel concerns over his mental capacity. Donald Trump his recent rally in Michigan has sparked concerns about his mental acuity as he made a series of blunders, including misremembering crucial dates and admitting ignorance on key terms.
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, so this is the propaganda machine. It's got to fire up. We've got a lame president right now that has a hard time remembering who he actually is. So we're gonna have to say that Trump is worse.
Yeah.
That's
Yep.
the game they're gonna play, and we're
Yeah,
gonna hear a lot of that kind of
that's
stuff.
all there is to it. It's disgusting. Like I said, I don't think anyone takes the press very seriously anymore. And for that matter, all of the games that they've been playing for the past few years, the impeachments, all of the different legal things that they keep trying to make stick. And the funny one is about the documents. Now, certainly he should have cooperated in turning those documents over, but then Biden has them in his garage in an open box by his Corvette. And oh, well, he's just a silly old man, so that's okay. I mean, it's absolute. But my point to that is everything that they do just puts another rung up on the ladder towards his presidency.
I mean, you take a
They
look at
anoint
these.
him.
They really do, and you look at the lawfare that's coming after him, and how who can't see that this isn't fair?
Right.
The thing that happened in New York this week, where he's got to pay $355 million because it was a dispute over how much his property was worth. The banks are saying, "No, we're good. We did good business. Everything was good. We'd do business with them again." But the state of New York has a vendetta against him, so they're like, "Well, you're a multi-billionaire. We don't like you, and we don't want you to run for president. So, how much money do you have? 355 million in cash. Yeah, we'll take that."
Yeah.
I mean, like what kind of legal system is that?
They'll
Now
never stand
New
up in a
York
past.
is in trouble.
Yeah.
Business leaders don't want to invest in New York anymore. Kathy Hochul had to come out and say, "Oh, well, as long as other business leaders don't have anything to worry about, it is really unless they're behaving like Donald Trump." And it's like behaving like him. It's not about the law. It's about how he behaved.
Yes. Yeah, you get in
Uh,
line. Yeah.
right, right. And so that decision alone could destroy New York. Not only got trucker strikes going
Your
on
mic
over
cut
in New
out again.
York, now they have trucker strikes that are going on in New York right now.
Good.
The economy, everything's going downhill in New York right now.
Well, speaking to the economy, that's funny. Dave Smith talked about it on a recent podcast, and I thought he put it well. And he was giving credit to, he doesn't remember who said this, but he wanted to give credit to, it wasn't his original thought, but what he was explaining about the economy, as again, we're always being told 2+2=5. They're telling us how great this economy is. And nobody believes that. Anybody that does their grocery shopping is like, what? No way.
Exactly.
Who he was mocking was Bill Maher. Because Bill Maher was, well, you don't understand the numbers then. He was saying so smugly to someone else. And so Dave Smith is explaining the numbers. Okay, so it's like the person that gained 100 pounds in 2021, well, they only gained 50 pounds in 2022. So their weight is now not increasing by 50%.
Right.
But
That's
they're
a good
still up
analogy.
150 pounds.
Right, right. Damn, that is a great analogy. I mean, because you hear this whole, oh, well, inflation is down now, so we're good. And it's like, yeah, but when I go to the store, I buy 3 things and it costs me $200.
Yeah.
How are we going to live? How are we
Yeah.
going to survive this? And then you've got Janet Yellen coming out and saying, no, inflation's here forever. It's not going away.
Oh,
Okay. The messaging that's coming out, I don't know how they can expect to win an election with the messaging that they have coming out with Joe Biden at the
I
helm.
can't. I was going to say I can't wait to see their strategies, but I'm terrified to see the amount of election interference and the levels that they're. I don't know what they're. Yeah, I don't know what tricks they got up their sleeves, but I know here in our extremely democratic little San Francisco city that we got here, we got 5 mail-in ballots shipped to us, mailed to us at different times.
Oh my God.
Mm-hmm.
That is terrible.
I put them on the kitchen table, and I'm like, what's going on here?
Well, I guess
so
we
you
know.
can't say on the one hand that they know that since this is probably 85% Democrats, they want to make sure every Democrat, they could get everyone the vote possible. Then the more conspiracy minded of us would say, oh, they'll count if you mail in 3, they'll count all 3.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And they will.
I don't know. I can't say, but I know that was all very, very odd. That struck me as extremely odd.
Well, I got some good news. And this is actually really good news regarding election integrity. The New York Appellate Court upholds election integrity. Remember, we were talking about how illegal aliens are allowed to vote in New York City elections now? And this was several months ago. We said this. A lawsuit in New York led by the Republican National Committee saw sanity prevail when an appellate court ruled that no, non-U.S. citizens cannot vote in our elections. If the absurd policy had been allowed to stand, some 900,000 non-citizens could cast their vote in municipal elections in the Big Apple. So that went down. Now I wonder if that would be appealed, but about 1 million people in New York were going to be able to vote, and that was going to set a precedent throughout the entire country.
Of course it would. And I've got to tell you,
that up right now.
That right there, I don't care what your political persuasion is, but if you're a thinking human being and you're thankful for being born and raised in this country, and you should be, then you want to respect the integrity of it. And I mean, to me, voting should be such a privilege. It should be something that can be easily taken away from you if you're a criminal. Maybe it should be earned. But you sure as hell don't want to give it away to undeserving people.
Well, especially people that are coming from a different country that have been living under tyranny. They don't understand how a democratic society should operate. they have no conception of that whatsoever, of what actual freedom is.
Mhm.
And they've not been socialized into the American way whatsoever. How I mean, really, what
Doesn't common sense.
justification? Yeah, what
It doesn't make common
justification would
sense.
we have to have a non-citizen
Mm.
enter into the that area of
Let's
policy?
let's face it, that's dirty pool.
It
It's
really is.
it's dirty pool. That's
Well,
what it is.
look at San Francisco, where they just put a non-citizen, a Korean woman, on their election board.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, they
Wow.
just did that this week. She, and in fact, when she was sworn in, they swore her in Korean. Like, you couldn't even understand what they were saying. And
Wow.
so I mean, what, how can you have a non-citizen in charge of elections in a major city like San Francisco?
That's San Francisco for you.
That's what's happening.
Yeah.
And we're seeing this kind of thing. So to your point, we're how are we supposed to have faith in our election process, with especially with this probably the biggest presidential election since George Washington,
Hmm.
coming up here in a few months?
Yeah, I don't know. It's going to be
Well,
really fishy. And by the
now
way,
we
I
do.
just want to throw out
Right.
there that I like the idea of RFK Jr. running independent, and if I had to vote today, that's the way I'd go.
I love RFK Jr.
I do
Everything
too.
that he's bubbling up right now is
Yeah, yeah.
so in your face establishment, in your
Yeah,
face.
it
And
is.
that's
It
why
is.
I just have a hard time believing that he's going to have a chance to win. But he
Think how
is.
brave this guy is.
Oh, I
Oh,
know.
dude, I got to tell you this one.
Everybody read that book that he wrote, The Real Dr. Fauci,
Oh,
because that is
yes.
mind-blowing stuff, man. And it goes back in
And
time, and you'll
someone
realize
said,
that this thing has been messed up for so long. Go ahead.
oh, for sure. And someone said, a couple of people have said, oh, well, can you believe it? Well, it hasn't been sued, has he? For
No,
libel, defamation of
no,
character, because you got to prove that. And so,
not at
no,
all.
it's fact based. That dude's all fact based. So I was going to say, I listened to
Brett Weinstein.
no, Tim Dillon. He's a
Oh,
comedian. I listened to his
yeah.
podcast, and a couple of months ago, RFK Jr. was on his podcast, and he had to back up and record a preface to the podcast because he goes, "You're not going to believe what happened." So RFK Jr., we're in the studio, we're having this podcast and everything. You got to understand, he's a Kennedy. What he's doing, he's anti-establishment. He's ruffling a lot of feathers. The power went out in the middle of the podcast.
Oh, yeah.
And it was deeply disturbing. Like, here's what I'm trying to say, folks, is that RFK Jr. has a literal big time
Target.
reason to fear for his life.
Yes.
His
He's a
father was
target.
assassinated. His uncle was assassinated. He is ruffling all the wrong feathers. And so I listened to that podcast. And as Tim explained, after the power came back on, it wasn't the same podcast. It was just really uneasy after that. And so my only point is, it's a entertaining story, but my only point is he's a brave man to continue to push ahead the way he's pushing ahead.
Well, look at how the Biden administration has weaponized this election.
Yeah,
You've
yeah.
got Trump under different indictments right now, facing hundreds of years in jail. You've got RFK Jr. They won't grant him any kind of Secret Service detail,
Right.
and
Right.
nobody gets denied Secret Service detail except for Kennedy, who's got a target on his back.
Right.
And we know that, and we know that that decision came from the Biden administration. In fact, what we're seeing now is some pretty horrible stuff coming from that administration and how they're trying to manipulate the media, because that's now their propaganda arm. Do you want to talk about what happened with Catherine Herridge?
Oh, you go ahead. I don't even.
Well, yeah, you sent me the thing this morning. CBS fires
right.
investigative journalist, seizes personal
Right.
files and materials. This is coming from the New York Post. The acclaimed CBS reporter who was investigating the Hunter Biden laptop scandal before she was fired last week had her personal files seized by the network in an unprecedented move. Catherine Herridge who is in the middle of a First Amendment case being closely watched by journalists nationwide, was among 20 CBS News staffers let go. Her firing has stunned coworkers, but the network's decision to hold on to her personal materials along with her work laptop, where she may have other confidential information, like her sources,
Yes.
has left many staffers shaken. This is a direct violation of the First Amendment again.
Absolutely. Oh, it's a
CBS
smack in the
firing
face.
her. First of all, she's handling the Hunter Biden laptop case. She's been on that since the beginning. She's the one that really broke that story wide
The one.
open.
Yeah.
And she constantly brings. He was with Fox News for a while, but she constantly brings just huge breaking stories. She's probably one of the best journalists out there, like as a reporter, that I've ever seen. And so this is just, you can smell where this whole thing is coming from right here, and going after their personal files and uncovering sources is exactly how you destroy a journalist, because once those sources are uncovered, then they can't be trusted by the sources any longer.
You
And that's
know,
what they're doing. And
I was
this is a travesty to our own personal rights that we have to understand what's going on behind the scenes. And by unmasking who the sources are, you destroy our ability to know. And the
integrity of
administration that's doing this knows this. And the fact that CBS is behind this tells you that they're all in cahoots right now.
They
and
are.
it's sick.
Well, and it's
sick.
exactly the same story as Julian Assange. And
right.
he's been rotting away in, I think, in Britain in prison.
That's right.
And, and all this time he's the originator of WikiLeaks, and it's freedom of the press. And even if he never gets extradited, and I know Obama took a lot of efforts to try to prosecute him, and even if his remaining days are as horrible as they are and doesn't get extradited and prosecuted here, it's still a big warning shot to all of mainstream media to stay in line, to every journalist, that this could happen to you. And the fact that they just did this to Kathy, what's her last name?
Herridge.
It's yet again, it's better stay in line. Do not go against the system. And this is just absolutely horrible. I was thinking, and this is ironically, before I sent you that story, I was thinking that we should do a podcast on the real American heroes, like Snowden. What's his name? Is it Jeffrey Snowden?
Yeah. I think so. Snowden.
Yeah. So he spent the rest of his life in Russia for cluing us in on the NSA and their nefarious activities. I mean, these people have really, those are true Americans, right down to the very spirit and core of America, and they're paying the big price for it. There's another guy, the lawyer who pursued the Exxon corruption that happened where Ecuador. Exxon was just, what were they doing? Mining, I think, mining for oil. They're absolutely destroying the environment of Ecuador. And this environmental lawyer went after them and sued them, and, just really brought justice, and was just killed by Exxon and their legal team. And I don't remember his name. I need to find out his status today. He was jailed for several years and for contempt of court under circumstances where no one has ever been jailed a single day for. And we need to sing the praises of some of these true American heroes.
I agree with that, and we should get on that more, because these people need to be noticed. They need to be out there, because these are the true patriots that are out there.
Yes.
I just had one other thing, that just sharing. We have this crisis that is happening at the border, but you know what? People are starting to understand what's happening, and this is how we get change to happen. This is in Times Square. You know how Times Square has that big billboard where they have advertisements? This is what they're showing right now in Times Square. It should be coming up. Hey Joe,
Oh,
if cops aren't safe because you're open borders, nobody is. And to sign the petition now, and they're showing this recent thing where these illegal
how?
immigrants were just kicking the police officers.
Oh, I am. Everyone's familiar with that story, and they were let go without penalty.
You saw the thing that happened with the NFL and in the Super Bowl this past week, which by the way, that
What?
game I thought was really great, but the shooting that happened
Oh, yeah,
during the
in Kansas City.
celebration, and
Yeah.
then it was like, well, who did it? And we didn't know for a long time, and they hush hush, and you find out it's black people that did it, and it's and then now there's this controversy because the mayor is mad at the governor because the governor said these thugs did this, we can't let these thugs do this, and now the mayor saying, well, that's a very racist thing to say.
How is that racist?
It's like, are you kidding? Everything's racist now. If a black person does it and you say anything about the terrible thing they did, then you're somehow a racist.
I just keep saying that I feel like 2024 this year is the year we turn this around because it's so silly. Like it's to the point everything's lost meaning.
It really is. I mean,
when does the white guilt run out? I mean, my God.
I'm telling you, I mean, by today's racist definition, the definition of racism, no one's innocent. We're all racist now.
For sure.
Every single person. I mean, if you take a breath, that's racist. You just you took air from black people.
There you go. I was going to say that. It's true. So stop breathing.
Yeah, quit your breathing, you racist. Anyway,
all white people should stop breathing.
Yeah, just the white people.
Hey, I know we really do have to go, but
yeah, you were going to say something about Gervais, though.
Oh, Gervais. I am, but I just wanted to mention because it's not fresh in my mind anymore. Did you listen to the Brett Weinstein interview on Rogan?
I listened to the first hour of it and
it got better.
To be extremely stimulating.
The first hour was amazing because they came right out of the gate talking about however you want to call it, but the attempt of a world government
domination.
Takeover.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I found it very interesting. I'm really loving Brett Weinstein.
Oh,
in fact, I heard him refer to himself Weinstein. I heard him call himself that. So it's Brett Weinstein. Mm-hmm. Anyway, one of the things that I found very interesting in that first hour was how Rogan kept talking about, it's the money thing. But they're destroying these crops, they're destroying cattle. Destroying all these different things like cattle and crops, but how does that make sense? And Weinstein is saying, well, you have to look, it's not about money, it's about power.
Yeah.
And power is derived by destroying these traditional methods of supply chain and allowing food to only come from one source, them. And
yes,
by
that's
doing
correct.
That, they have power.
And I would say that was pretty much the subject matter for the next hour of the show, it was powerful right up to the closing credits. And Weinstein is just I admire him so much because he doesn't waste a word. Like when he speaks, and he'll always preface something with, if it's deemed necessary, with, look, this is just my opinion and it's a conclusion that could happen, but I can't prove it. And then he'll say what it is. So he's careful with what he says. And I really respect that.
I do too.
He can make very complicated subject matter easy to understand. And that's a gift.
It is a gift.
Yes. When I see his name, I listen to that podcast. Yeah.
Well, the thing also that I appreciate with him, much like you, Barry, is that you and I are able to go to second and third level thought. This guy can go to like fifth and sixth and seventh level thought,
and bring it back with him.
Yeah. The thing that you just spent like 30 years trying to figure out in one sentence, he can totally change that picture in your head.
Yeah.
And he does it so calmly. With he doesn't get all like I do, all emotional.
He does not.
he just puts out the truth, and
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, but I will say I really encourage you to listen to the rest of that
I will.
episode, because when I got done with it, I was a little afraid. It did not end on with a positive feeling of hopefulness for this country, maybe even the world. It's just not fresh top of mind because it was over a week ago that I listened to it. Okay, so as we close up, I did want.
Can I just
Go ahead.
weigh in one sentence on that? Is that the more I look at stuff like this, the real truth of where we are in the world, it's dawned on me that really the real solution out of this, I don't think mankind has any answers. I think this is
It's
going to
interesting.
it's going to be God that brings us out of this. I really believe that, as it says in the Bible, that all things are really under him, and that if you look at American history in general, and the fact that we brought up the Declaration of Independence and how our country is based on the fact that we're made in God's image. I don't know that any other country is based on that.
Mhm.
But we look at our history from the very start, the revolution, miraculous. There's no way we were supposed to beat the most powerful military in history up to that
Yeah,
time, reigning for 1,000 years. No
right.
way. And then you take a look at how we were able to make it through World War II, and we weren't even ready for that whatsoever. And we become a superpower after that. I mean, miracle after miracle seems to have happened. You look at World War II and how it ended with the atomic bomb. We split an atom. How
Mm,
what? How in the world that?
mm,
I mean, you start to think about this, and you think about, well, what's our destiny?
mm.
Well, this country is founded is one nation under God, and I
Well,
just really believe that we need to get back to that original faith and
well, I
pray
I
whatever
hope.
your faith is, and pray that God intervenes and makes things happen, and changes people's hearts.
I
I
hope
just
he intervenes sooner rather than later, because we're
saying
there. And I feel like I think about this a lot. And we talk so much about AI here. And I feel like AI is going to save our asses, and it's kind of like our destiny. Like everything's coming to a head, right to a pinnacle. We're almost there. And I think it's AI that has the only real chance of saving us. And maybe it's in conjunction with Neuralink, because as soon as we start being able to share our thoughts and intentions, there's going to be a lot of eyes opened up to nefarious things and intentions going on. Maybe that's it. And maybe that is one and the same thing with
well,
God.
that's where we're going to disagree, and we always do. That
That's
that we
okay.
get to that one point, and
Yep.
that's where we kind of go in different directions. But I mean, it's good that we got to that point.
Yes,
I
yes.
I personally think that AI is going to be the tool to oppress everybody,
Mm.
and already the leaders that are the powers that be. Not, I'm not talking about Elon Musk with Neuralink, but they're saying that's what they want to use it for,
For
and
sure.
they have the means and the facility to make that happen. And I could see how capturing something like Neuralink as a business, because they want to put that man out of business.
Yeah.
Now that can be used for nefarious purposes. It's sort of like Tesla and how, well, hey, it's a great car, but now it's in China, and he's doing a lot of business in China. And now of course,
Mm,
in order to do business in China, you got to give up your IP. And so
mm, mhm.
apparently they have his IP over there,
Oh, God.
and now they can use all that technology against us, and they are. And
Yeah.
so I don't know. We're gonna have to find out, right? But
Oh, we are. Nobody
it's an
knows.
interesting discussion that I love to have with you, brother.
Yeah, same. Nobody knows. I listen to the brightest minds on the subject matter on all these podcasts, and no one knows.
Yeah,
And that's scary. But with that, let's lighten it up. I do have to get going. I did
me
want to
too.
tell you about Ricky Gervais's show Afterlife. And it's a few years old. I just discovered it. One of the people I walk dogs with, he told me about it.
Huh.
And it is an amazing show. It's 3 seasons.
Oh,
I
I've
did.
seen part of this.
Oh, it is the best show. It goes by so quickly. So each season's only about 8 to 10 episodes, and each episode's only a half hour or 35 minutes or something. So it goes by so fast. It's so good. it's all about, and in a day and age where there's never an original thought or idea in media, this very interesting thought and idea was, he's in this really quaint town in England. He has this little job as a little reporter at a little newspaper, a tiny town newspaper. But it starts, his wife had just recently passed away of cancer. And he's always watching video of her on his laptop. It is a tearjerker every episode. Because they had the best relationship in the world. Now his life is without meaning. And he's very, what's the word when you don't have any hope or anything? I can't think of the word. I'll think of it later. God, these words always escape me now at 58. And so his life is without meaning. He's really just waiting to die. He's drinking a lot, and he does. And so the funny parts of it is a very funny show too, of course. It's Ricky Gervais. So he goes through life and down the sidewalks and everything else, running into people that do and say stupid stuff. And he says what we all wish that we could say to people, you know, he says it, and because he doesn't care. And he's got the quirky people that he works with, like 5 or 6 of them, who all have really funny, quirky personalities. So it's an awesome, awesome show of seeing him deal with this real world problem. Like, my God, unless we Thelma and Lisa and I talking about me, her, and Charlie doing a Thelma and Louise thing and all going out together, you know, because if you don't do that, someone's going to end up living alone for part of, and dealing with it, that kind of grief. And that's what the show's about. And him trying to find hope, and him trying to find meaning in life, him tossing around the idea of dating someone else, and he can't bring himself to do it. Dude, it's so good. It's one of those shows, when it ended, Jesus, man, we were crying. And it had a really good ending, a really good, just, no, he didn't find another love of his life, but he found hope and meaning. And it was,
that's really something, Barry. I mean, you know,
it's called Afterlife. I just want to mention it's called Afterlife.
I think about, you know, my marriage to Anne Marie, and I think, you know, God, what I can't imagine living my life without her in it. I mean, it's just, I'm starting to get a lump in my throat just thinking about that, but it's just like, I cannot. And then if I were to live a life, I can't imagine being with somebody else.
I know.
You know what I mean? Like after I've been with her, I cannot imagine being happy any other way.
And the thought of dating sounds awful.
Yeah, I know. And having to go through all of those, like, okay, like, did you really leave the whatever, all your little idiosyncrasies, you got to go through that all over again.
Yeah.
You know, Anne Marie's just now getting used to me. So I gotta go through that again.
I know what you mean. You know what? That's very well said. Lisa and I talk about how slow our relationship has been to mature, and how we still get to know each other a little bit better all the time after 15 years. So
same here after 20 some years. And I say 20
it's
some.
amazing. I guess, you know, just don't take your relationships for granted. And when you grant somebody the forgiveness to be their quirky self, it's really liberating in so many ways on a personal level.
Sure is.
Yeah.
You know, that's the best time right there, is when we can just be silly or weird or whatever, just say something. I mean, and not feel like you're judged for doing that, you know, just have that. And we do that. I mean, Anne Marie and I do that, and we just allow ourselves to be ourselves. And nice. It's the best.
Well, we are going on vacation, our annual trip to Florida come Wednesday. We will be gone for next Friday. And hey, you know, we've done a show before from Florida, and I don't know if you'd want to do that. It's a possibility if you want to. Via my laptop.
Okay. Let's talk about it. Yeah, I remember seeing those little trikes going by in the background.
Right. Yeah, we did a few shows actually over the years.
We actually have.
Yeah, so maybe we should do that. We'll talk about it.
All right. Sounds good,
All
Barry.
right.
Well,
With
this
that, I
was
want to
great.
just mention again Ricky Gervais's Afterlife. It's his first show. I didn't know it. He did two other shows. Each went for 2 seasons. He pulls the plug because he feels like, it's time to move on to something else. And so he went all of 3 seasons with this show. And the point really being there is it's one of those few shows that's not looking for filler because, well, they found a cash cow and now they got to run it forever. No, it had a beginning, a middle, and an end, and it ended just when it should. And I know you don't have Netflix, so I was hesitant to talk about it, but I sure hope you find a way to see it.
It's interesting that you're talking about him because I saw an article on him and it had to do with one of the cast members from the show The Office out of the UK
Yeah.
died
Oh, I saw
unfortunately
that.
at age
Yeah.
50. But I read that Ricky Gervais, is that how you say
Gervais.
his
Yeah.
Yeah, he had written a farewell to him, and it turns out he was the writer of
Creator.
he's the creator of that show. I
That
did
was his
not
show.
know that. Yeah,
And it only went 2 seasons.
and the one here was the spin-off of that,
Yes,
right?
correct.
Yeah,
And
that's pretty
I heard the
cool.
original was a lot better. And even
That's what I heard too.
yeah, even though the American one was so popular.
It
Yeah.
was really, really good.
Mhm.
So it made me want to see that show.
Yeah, I got a whole new profound respect for Ricky because previously I've only known him from the Golden Globes or whatever the heck that he would
That was the
roast people.
Academy Awards.
Oh, okay. But he
Well, that
was
was serious.
brutal.
Wow.
And so
And then you look back at that and it's like that was all stuff that, the Epstein stuff he was saying, that was all in their face, man.
Yeah, and I've watched his last 2 specials on Netflix, and I'll tell you the newest one isn't his best. Lisa and I watched them together after Afterlife was over. We needed a little more Ricky. But his previous special was very, very good. And he's got a very interesting way. Okay, every comedian needs to find their method of diffusing that bomb they just set off that could cancel them, Yes. And I know Bill Burr is like the best at it in his own way. But Ricky is funny in the fact that he's cute. He's kind of cute, and he's got this really cute laugh and he laughs at himself. But then he always says, "No, it's not me. It's not me. He said it." Like the character he was just doing. He said it, not me, not me. And that's even funnier on top of the joke. So but his drive and his talent for conceptualizing and finding a way to bring these new ventures of his to life, I just have a whole profound respect. And his acting in Afterlife. Jeez, man.
Well, I gotta say, comedians like him are such a godsend to us because look at what he said at the Academy Awards that he was able to get away with saying it right to them. They did not like that. Right, well, he did it, and he didn't seem to harm his popularity. It made him even more popular. And this is the gift that comedians have.
They're the canaries in the coal mine.
Throughout history, these comedians, look, we had court gestures before. Nobody could talk to the king about what that he wasn't wearing any clothes, right? The emperor has no clothes. Yep. But the comedian, the court jester can come in and with a crazy hat on or whatever and be naked and say, I'm the king. And it's funny, but it gets the point across. And we see how people like Dave Chappelle has been very much one of those people out there. Thank God for guys like this that have the cojones to go out there and say the things that need to be said. And they've got that talent of being funny at the same time.
That they are the canaries in the coal mine. And what is meant by that, canaries were used to see if there was harmful gases in it, because they would die before anybody else. So, it's a little dangerous down there. Well, that's what our comedians are. That's what art is. And when comedians really do get canceled, that's when our liberty censorship is.
When the king kills the court jester, it's time to get out of the.
It's time to get out of that kingdom, man.
Get out of that kingdom, baby.
Yeah.
Saddle up. Well, let's wrap
So,
it up, Barry. Tell them
yeah,
how they can find us and all that
yeah.
kind of great stuff.
Go to over50startingover.com and sign up to our email list. You'll get this dropped in your email box as it happens. Go to YouTube, sign up at Over 50 Starting Over, and hit the subscribe button. Please share with it. Probably most importantly, go to Apple Podcasts, sign up there so you can listen to it, so you don't have to look at our ugly faces. And but please give us it's so much better. Please give us a 5-star rating. It's very, very important to us. And with that, man, have a good weekend. Hard to sign off because I really had a lot of fun talking.
I did too, man. Me too. Well, happy Friday to you, Barry.
Happy Friday, buddy. Have a good weekend. All right. See you, folks.